Ralph DeVolio. I joined the Marine Corps in February 1949, and the biggest advantage I had in joining the Marine Corps is that most of our Marine Corps officers and non-commissioned officers had experience in combat in World War II. So they were experienced fighters, and they were good. I had no problem with any of our officers or non-commissioned officers at all. Okay, when I first went in, I was a PFC, private first class, and I worked my way up to staff sergeant. I was born on August 14th, 1930, in Rome, New York. And my mother was also born in Rome, New York, but my father was born in Foggia, Italy. My mother left him when I was 12 years old. As a good example for me was her brother, my Uncle Sil. He had served during World War II. He was in electronics, and he always told me I should become an electronic engineer. He was my motivation for going into electrical engineering later on. And the other sibling that my mother had was my Aunt Anna, and they lived by me. I grew up around my aunt and uncle in Rome, New York, and it was during the Depression years, but I never knew there was a depression because at the beginning, my father worked as a carpenter. He always had work. And when my mother left him when I was 12 years old, she worked actually 3 different jobs. She worked for the Air Base. She had a job there. She also had a job working at the Revere Brass and Copper. And then she sold Avon products on the side. She was always running. She was going from one job to another all the time. But she always managed, she was an outstanding cook. She always managed to cook a wonderful dinner for us, particularly on Saturdays and Sundays. She was the best cook in the world until my wife came along. And then she became the best. My mother was always working. My uncle was, he had a job in electronics, and he was the biggest influence on me when I was growing up. He set the motivation for what I wanted to become. The one who raised me was a grandmother who had the responsibility for, cooking for us, and she ran a tight ship. She was very strict. We had a little truck garden, and she wanted me to work in there. I wanted to run off with my friends. I worked with her most of the time, but she wasn't satisfied with that. In fact, I remember one incident when my buddies used to come and wanted me to go swimming with them. I ran off, and she got so angry, she threw a pitchfork and barely missed me. But most of the time, she was in control. I did have jobs when I was growing up. I worked in a bowling alley setting pins. I used to work 2 alleys at the same time. I also had a job working in a garage. I learned a little bit about cars and so forth doing that. The one advantage I had when I was in football, I had a lot of hard jobs, like when I worked in a bowling alley, so I was a very strong runner. And once they gave me the ball, I'd plow right through the line and go for a touchdown most of the time. I was a very good football player. There was no question about it. That was one sport. The other sport was baseball, and I played a lot of baseball. I was a very good slugger. I could hit that ball a mile, and I had a good eye and good reflexes. So those were my 2 main sports, football and baseball. The other one that served in the service was my cousin Ralph. Unfortunately, we both had the same name, and he was in the Marine Corps about 8 years before me. So he served in the Marine Corps also. When I joined the Marine Corps, I was 18 years old, and I was influenced by two buddies. I was thinking about joining the Air Force because the education opportunities were good when you got out, but they talked me into joining the Marine Corps. And then when we went down, took the physical, I passed, and they were both overweight. They got sent home. And when I was going down to Paris Island, I was cursing them all the way. But one of my other buddies did lose weight, and he ended up in the Marine Corps right behind me. As I was getting out of boot camp, he was coming in, and I was in church. Somebody tapped me on his shoulder, I turned around, and there he was. So he ended up in the Marine Corps also. Oh, yeah, he went in the Navy. The other friend, when he lost weight, you went through the same physical in the Navy and Marine Corps. He ended up going in the Navy. Boot camp was very, very difficult, but they prepared me for anything. What happened was that while I was in boot camp, they pulled 4 wisdom teeth. I had gone down to the dentist. They pulled the 4 wisdom teeth. I walked back to the barracks. You guys didn't. And I got kind of dizzy. What used to happen is that the drill instructor would when anytime he walked in, everybody had to stand at attention. And while I was standing at attention, I felt weak because of the 4 wisdom teeth being pulled. And I happened to flop on my bunk, and he caught me there. He took me, he stood me against the wall. He took a rifle, which weighed about 8-10 pounds. I had to hold it up, and every time I got weak and loaded on my shoulder, he'd bang it on my shoulder. I go back up again. That was part of the boot camp. I mean, it was very, very difficult. Oh, and then afterwards, I had to go on a hike. Yeah, I still had blood coming out of my mouth, but I did it. I managed to survive boot camp. After I got out of boot camp, I got stationed in Washington, D.C. Every year, we had to go to the rifle range for 2 weeks, and you had to qualify with an M1 rifle is mostly what I qualified. I became an expert rifleman. So when I got out of there, they put me in a machine gun platoon. I didn't have to be as accurate as a machine gunner, but I was an expert rifleman. So that's the way that went. June of 1950, North Korea invaded South Korea, and then I was under MacArthur. MacArthur, although he was Army, he was in charge of all the military at that point. So under MacArthur, we made the Incheon landing. What happened is that's where we cut Korea in two, and we took Seoul, and all the North Koreans that could get by went north, and we had to. We moved to go north all the way up to the Chinese border. When we got near the Chinese border, the Chinese intervened. They were on the side of the North Koreans, and they came in. We had a count of about 15,000. They came in with about 150,000 Chinese, and they pushed us out of North Korea. And then we had to fight our way north again. But when they came in, we were up at Chosin Reservoir, where it was minus 32 below zero. And so we moved out of Chosin Reservoir south, which was good, and got aboard ship. And then they put us on board ship. They went south. I think we were in Busan for a short while. And then we went to Hungnam, and we moved north again. As I was saying, the officers that we had were outstanding officers in the Marine Corps. They were well trained, And they trained us like, to really know how to react in battle. So although we were always outnumbered and all that, we seemed to always take advantage of the fact that we overcome the Chinese in most cases. William Masterpool, who was he was from Syracuse, New York. I was from Rome. They're only about 50 miles apart. I didn't know that at the time, but he was our commanding officer. He had a wonderful sense of humor. He was dynamic, and he was a good example for us. I remember that we had a Jeep. We didn't use many vehicles there, but we had this Jeep that was going alongside us. And Masterpool was next to the rear left tire, and it ran over a landmine, and it blew that tire straight up in the air. So he got some of the concussion. So all of a sudden we look and we see Masterpool on the ground, laid out perfectly. He had his hands under his head like this. And they asked him, how come you had your hands? He says, I'm used to seeing these grotesque bodies, and I wanted to look good when I went. And he says, I thought I was gone. When you got an officer like that, you can't go wrong. Most of the time, he was our commanding officer while we were there fighting against. First of all, we pushed the North Koreans all the way up north. When we got along the Chinese border, the Chinese used that as an excuse to come in to help their buddies, the North Koreans. So they intervened at that time with, like I say, they had about 150,000 Chinese troops. And here we were with about 15,000. So we ended up moving out of there, going back south again. Probably never heard of him, but they called him Chesty. His name was Chesty Puller. And when we were surrounded coming out of the north, he looked around and he was the kind of guy, although there was shooting around him, he wasn't hiding in a hole somewhere. He was out there like he was on a picnic. And as we were coming south and they were on both sides shooting down on us, he said, we got them right where we want them. He pointed in all four directions. He says, here, 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 and here. He said, they're trapped. And he meant it. And we knew he meant it. So he was a good example for us. And they called him Chesty Puller, Puller. I was proud to serve under him. And Oliver P. Smith was the commanding general of our 1st Marine Division. And he was a very brave general. He knew about how to counteract the enemy. He always put us in the best positions. For instance, when we were going north, he had this Army general that was under MacArthur that was in charge. And the Army general, he moved all his troops very quickly through the enemy lines, and they got surrounded and they got wiped out. And he was trying to get Chesty Puller, Oliver B. Smith, to move us quickly through that same line. He says, Oliver P. Smith says, we fight as a group. We all fight together, and we don't separate. We're always in contact with each other. And that was a good philosophy because the Chinese were never able to surround us and overwhelm us. We always fought our way out. So we like I say, we had the best officers who had the best experience, who always put us in the best positions to survive. He was looking for our survival so we could still fight the enemy. The army was getting wiped out like crazy. And when we went into an area where they got wiped out, we'd find them scattered all over the place. They were dead, unburied, all over the place, because they didn't fight as a group together like we did. Oh, I started off as an ammo carrier, but I was gung-ho to be the gunner on the machine gun. When the gunner got wiped out, see, the problem with our machine guns was they were on these tripods, and the gun was a water-cooled gun, and it was that far above the ground, and the gunner had to be sitting up behind it. And most of the gunners got shot in the head. And for some reason, I thought it was great to be a gunner. And so when the gunner got shot in the head, assistant gunner didn't want the job, and I was the first ammo carrier, so I jumped over him and I took the job as being the gunner on that machine gun. And I was on there for most of my tour of duty in Korea. I was the gunner on a heavy machine gun. The life expectancy of water-cooled machine gunners was about 3 minutes in combat, in active combat. And although I lost, one of my ammo carriers got shot right through the throat. My gun got a few ricochets off it too, but I always survived without any injuries. Oh, another thing that happened was they had the different units, like to be an Army unit and then the Marine Corps unit, and then there was the Republic of Korea unit. And when the Chinese intervened, the Republic of Korea unit just took off, it retreated, and they left an artillery unit behind. So they got us. I was part of Able Company as a machine gunner, and they got our 2 machine guns in Able Company and moved us up so that artillery unit could retreat, get out of that area. And so while I was there, Able Company, there were 2 machine guns that were left behind, mine and the other Able Company machine gun. And we held off the enemy until the artillery unit moved in safe unit and everybody else moved. And then at that point, I remember we were on a little hill shooting down on the Chinese, my gun here and the other gun there, and we let 1 or 2 trickle over. And then when the whole bunch got off the run, we shoot them down. They claim they must have killed almost 500 to 1,000 Chinese in that area. And they gave us a medal for that. So, oh, that's right. When they left, we just couldn't leave. We had to hold off the enemy. And what I had was, I had a 45, a bunch of grenades. I put them all down there, and I had my 45 there. And then I had my machine gun. And I figured once I used up all my ammo, I had 8 ammo carriers. Each one carried a couple of boxes of ammo with about 500 rounds in each. And I figured when I ran all out of ammo, then I got my 45. That thing, the 45 was a powerful weapon. You hit anybody with that thing and it practically blow them over. And so I had my 45 and I had my machine gun. But fortunately, after everybody departed, they sent a runner back to us and says, "You can leave now." So being the gunner, I carried a 51-pound tripod. I put the tripod down, the assistant gunner puts the gun on there, and then I operate the gun. Well, I had that 51-pound tripod. I had about a backpack that carried my food and ammo for my 45. With all that weight, once they said we could leave, I was like a deer out of there real quick, like, and we survived that. I didn't incur any injuries. I had a little thing across here that got a bullet just went by my hand. Incidentally, for holding off the Chinese there, we received the Bronze Star kind of with Combat V. Combat V meant you got it for being in combat. Oh, what happened was that I had only a week or two to go before they had to rotate me out. You could only be in combat for 9 months. And my time was getting close. And by that time, they made me the squad leader. So as a squad leader, I had a foxhole outside. We had a bunker where the machine gun was. Then I had a foxhole outside the machine gun where I could observe enemy coming or going or whatever. So we were hit by mortar fire. We had mortar, and it could have been artillery fire too. It was hitting our area. So for protection, I went into the bunker. I was in the bunker, for about 2 or 3 minutes when a shell hit right next to my bunker. And after the shelling was over, I got up and went outside, and that shell landed right in my foxhole. It blew all my grenades up and everything else. If I had been in there, I would have been wiped out. And it was only about 2 or 3 minutes till I walked into the foxhole that thing landed on my hole. That was the closest I came to near death. Oh,
stay back.
That was it. What happened was we used to go out on patrol. And we take the same path. We go down this hill, down this path, over in this area, looking for the enemy. And then we come back and go back up again. So what happened was they came up to me and they says, "Today you don't go out on patrol because you're leaving tomorrow and we're not going to risk you being near death." And what had happened was that the enemy had snuck in during the night and planted landmines all along the paths where we were going. So I wasn't with the patrol, but they went out, and every time somebody stepped on a landmine, got their legs blown off or whatever, somebody come to help them, and they'd step on one. And I don't know how many guys got killed there, but that was the night I didn't have to go because I was leaving the next day. I would have gotten my legs blown off too. Because we went over the same path. That was dumb. And so they moved in during the night and planted landmines in there. Okay, what happened was the Army had a policy where they would have supposedly South Koreans or friendly enemy come in and help them with their weapons and stuff. And they wanted to get me somebody as part of the Marine Corps to help me with my stuff. I said, "No, I don't want anybody helping me." But they said, "No, we're going to give you your guy anyway." So they got me this Korean. And he came along and, helped me carry my stuff. When we set up for the night, that Korean had to leave and go into a safe area along with any other helpers. And we didn't want them around us anyway. They moved me into an area, and I'm digging the gun in, and we were being shot at while we were doing that. So I'm digging with my shovel, trying to dig my gun in, And all of a sudden, here's this Korean along with me. He's not supposed to be there. I said, no, hey, go on the other area. He kept digging, and he got hit. I don't know. He got injured from the fire coming in on us. So I yelled to our corpsman. I said, hey, my helper got, I said, we got an injury here. We want you to come and get him. He said, who was injured? I said, my helper. He says, I'm not coming down there for your helper. So I took and I put this guy on my shoulder, and while I'm being shot at, I got him over to a safe area. I laid him down there and then went back down to where my gun was. But the corpsman never, ever refused to help any of our people. If anybody got injured, they were there to help you. But then that he wasn't one of ours, and we were being shot at unmercifully, he decided, I'm not going there for a Korean. So I got him to safety. That's all I remember about that. And I was happy to get him to safety. That guy sacrificed his life for me. He wasn't supposed to be there in the first place. There was no reason why he was supposed to be there with me, none whatsoever. But for some reason, I used to feed him, give him food and stuff like that. I took good care of him. He decided he's going to take good care of me. So although I kept saying, go, 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 he wouldn't go until he got injured. So I drank and smoked, took showers when I could. But I don't know, in combat, life was pretty tough. You just had to do the best you could to survive. And the best you could do is dig a deep foxhole. They always put the machine gun, at a point where they were expecting to counterattack. So anytime I went in to dig my foxhole, dig my gun in, I was always being shot at. And they worried about the automatic weapons. So when that Korean came in to help me, he didn't have to be there, but he did. And then when he got hit, they wouldn't come and get him, but I took him to safety. Yeah, I remember that. Up at Chosin Reservoir, our feet frozen. We had to walk out of there. Oh, I had to change my socks every couple hours or your feet would freeze. We had these shoot packs, but they weren't all that great. They were better than what the enemy had. But you had to change your socks every couple hours or your feet would freeze, get frozen feet. And a lot of the Marines had frozen feet up there. Oh, I'll tell you one experience that happened. When we were going across, going out of the Chosin Reservoir, there was this bridge, and the enemy blew it up. We had to cross that bridge so that we couldn't go across. And I remember they had a helicopter that brought this big bridge and dropped it over, and dropped it there so we could go over that bridge. But boy, that was a shaky experience. No, we walked over it. Oh, they did have a vehicle that went across it, that made it across okay after they put the new bridge on. We had to run across it. We're still being shot at a little bit more over there, I remember. But I remember that helicopter came over and dropped that bridge in place over where the other one was. They had it long enough to fit across there. My proudest moment was when we kept the Chinese at the time from getting around us. We held them off. That was my proudest moment. Master Poo, I said, Master Poo was with us on the side. I said, see, we must have killed a couple hundred. He said, you killed over 500 of them trying to get around us. They never got around us. That was the proudest moment. The greatest moment was when that tire went up in the air and he put his hand down like that because he thought he was gone and he wanted to look good. Masterful I remember it was Masterful that tried to plug up the hole. He was pinching it, but the kid was gone by then, so. But he tried to save the kid by doing that. Oh, yes, there were 3 names there. And I still remember the name. Yeah, his name was Simpson. John Simpson. He's the guy that got shot in the throat. He was a brave, brave kid. There were many times I interacted with Chesty Puller. Although everybody was running for cover, he'd be out there like he was on a picnic. And then when we were coming out of the Chosin Reservoir being shot at, I remember Chesty Puller saying, "We got them right where we want them, here, 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 and here." He pointed in all directions and he says, "They're trapped." We weren't trapped, they were. It looked to me like we were trapped, but Chesty was that way. Very, very brave officer. I know I had this feeling that it was always the other guy's going to get it, not me. I felt I was indispensable as far as being killed. I didn't think it's going to be me. But those bullets were coming close.